Welcome to the Anime Audiophile Podcast. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you. Chapter 2. Home at last. You're as busy as ever then, Orochimaru said in the same old husky voice and took a silent sip from his teacup. Hun? Naruto rubbed his eyes, convinced that he was now seeing ghosts. But the vision before him was, without a doubt, real. Orochimaru was drinking tea in the Uzumaki living room. Hi, Naruto. Welcome home, Hinata said, smiling at him from where she stood in the dining room. Orochimaru brought strawberry. Sensei. It's really delicious. Do you want some? Hinata, Naruto stammered. Orochimaru is in our living room. He is. He arrived a little while ago. Hinata's calm was in contrast to Naruto's panic. I was surprised to see him too, but he's been a real help, playing so much with Himawari. He said he has something to talk to you about. Talk? Orochimaru? Me? Were we friendly like that? Hinata set out some tea and strawberry zensai for him. Well, I'm off to pick up some things for supper, she said gently and left the living room. Right. Be careful, Naruto murmured and then realized he was still standing, so he tentatively pulled out a chair. Himawari ran in clutching a pencil crayon and wrapped herself around Orochimaru's legs. Araki. Draw more. Maybe later, he said, looking down at her. I need to talk with your daddy for a second. So what do you want to talk about? Naruto was still baffled, but he nevertheless straightened up in his seat. Orochimaru had been quietly minding his own business as of late, so Naruto had let his guard down a bit. But he knew the Snake Man would happily commit any evil for the sake of his own goals. He wasn't the sort of person to sit leisurely in your living room sipping a cup of tea. Not normally. Could you be a little less defensive? I came because I wanted to lend you something. Orochimaru reached a hand into the sleeve of his kimono and dug out from its deep pocket a pair of large goggles. What are those? Naruto asked warily. My latest invention. These goggles can give you the ocular jutsu of someone else. Give? Someone else's ocular jutsu? Naruto blinked rapidly, confused. In the last few years, there had been remarkable development in technologies that could separate ninjutsu from their users and store them independently. The pioneer of this advancement was Katasuke, and his key inventions were the scientific ninja tools. But ocular jutsu, based on Kekaginkai, were extremely difficult to reproduce. Common thought was that it was impossible for ocular jutsu to be used by other people with scientific ninja tools. Naruto took the goggles and stared at them. Gray frame with orange lenses. So they're like the scientific ninja tools? He asked. An average person with no chakra can use these goggles? Yes. Their performance has no relationship to the wearer's chakra. Earlier, your wife was kind enough to work with me to set them with the Byakugan ability. The Byakugan? Orochimaru looked at Naruto's surprised face, and his smile had a cruel edge. However, while the ability is set in the goggles, your wife cannot use her Byakugan. Go ahead and put them on. No matter how he looked at it, this technology was sketchy. But his curiosity outweighed his suspicions, and so Naruto put on the goggles, keeping an eye on Orochimaru the whole time. All he could see through the glass was a slightly warped living room. His field of view did not change. Nothing's happening, he said. There's a small lever on the frame, Orochimaru told him. Pull it. Here? He tugged hard on the little switch to one side of a lens, and his field of vision flipped like he was looking through a kaleidoscope. Oh. It wasn't a kaleidoscope. It was the familiar sight of his living room. Except that he could see everything. The sink on the other side of the counter, the designs on the plates and cups in the cupboards, the mosquito behind a cushion on the sofa, the movement of Himawari's hands where she sat on the carpet drawing each and every one of the pages of the sketchbook, everything. Unable to keep his eyes open any longer, Naruto pushed the goggles up onto his forehead. "What is that even?" he yelped. "I can see so much, but I also can't see anything at all. At first, your brain can't keep up and process everything. Train with them." "Train?" Naruto guessed at Orochimaru's intentions and narrowed his eyes sharply. "So that's your little game. You're making me test your prototype." "I wouldn't lend them to you out of the goodness of my heart," Orochimaru said gracefully. "Why me?" Naruto took off the goggles and stared at them again. "If you want to test a prototype, you've got Suigetsu and Karen. Why come all the way to my house?" "Well, put simply..." Orochimaru suddenly stretched his neck out. "You can't use chakra now, yes?" An icy breath stroked the back of his own neck, and Naruto scowled, not hiding the chill he felt. "How do you know that?" "Snakes have excellent hearing." The forked tip of his long tongue licked at the back of Naruto's ear. Recoiling in disgust would only make Orochimaru happy. Naruto kept his arms crossed and his face expressionless. Seeing this, Orochimaru smiled, seemingly pleased. "Working with me isn't such a bad deal for you," he remarked. "And if I refuse?" "I don't think you can." He was exactly right. Naruto was reluctant to lend a hand to this man's research, but now that he couldn't manipulate chakra, the goggles were appealing. And to be honest, he always wondered what the view was like when Hinata was using her Byakugan ability. With no clue about what was going on, Himawari trotted over and innocently clapped her hands. "Wow! Araki, you can stretch your neck out? You're like a giraffe, huh?" "A snake." "Snake. Not a giraffe." Orochimaru pulled his neck back in and slowly stood up. "I'll come again," he said and headed for the front door. Utterly smitten, Himawari trotted after him on small feet. "Araki, you'll come over again, right? Next time, I want you to draw my brother's picture." "Yes, all right." He smiled. "I'll draw whatever you'd like." As always, Naruto was puzzled by this guy. Shiny black hair swinging, Orochimaru stepped out the front door, and Naruto watched him go with a strange feeling. In his hands were the mysterious goggles with the power of the Byakugan. If the goggles allowed a person to master a Kekkei and an ocular jutsu on top of that, they would definitely be a powerful weapon. Naruto, though, would be happy if it could compensate for the handicap of not being able to use chakra. That night, sunk deep in the sofa cushions, Naruto stared at the TV. Without actually watching what was on. He would never let the kids see him looking so slovenly, but it was just him and Hinata in the living room at the moment, and he allowed himself to be a little lazy. He'd been practicing with the Byakugan goggles ever since Orochimaru left. He hadn't trained that hard in a while, and he was completely wiped out. "What a shock, though," he muttered. "I mean, that guy drinking tea in my living room like any regular person. I was definitely surprised when the doorbell rang and I opened the door to find Orochimaru. Hinata handed him a warm mug from where she sat next to him. A cafe au lait made with freshly ground coffee beans and plenty of honey and milk. With a child's sweet tooth, Naruto really liked drinking it this way. But in the Hokage office, he and Shikamaru always raised cups of concentrated black coffee, energy drink added. "Maybe you were surprised, but you seemed to get along with him just fine," Naruto noted. "He clearly wasn't hostile," Hinata said. "And he's basically a mom friend. Our kids hang out together, after all." The Orochimaru, a mom friend. Naruto cocked his head to one side as he drained his mug, and Hinata gently touched his wrist. "I think you've gotten skinnier, Naruto. Your chakra's still not up to its usual levels?" "Oh. No, this is..." He tried to protest. "You're pushing yourself too hard at work again, They lived together under the same roof, so of course Hinata would notice that he was not in the best shape, and it was obvious to her, a Byakugan user, that his chakra had dropped. He had explained his weariness as overwork from the busy season. He didn't want to have an episode in front of his family, so he'd been sequestering himself up at his office lately, not coming home too often. Because of this, Hinata didn't seem to suspect that his actual health was suffering. Anyway, I practiced using the Byakugan today with Orochimaru's goggles. Naruto quickly changed the subject. It didn't go too well. To be honest, it was super hard. It's incredible you and old man Hayashi and Anabi are such masters. Whatever else, there were just too many things to look at. His attention would get caught by something too far back in his field of vision, and he'd trip over things, hit his head on outstretched branches, and give himself a bunch of ugly scratches and bruises. "Hinatea, isn't there some kind of trick to it?" he asked, playing with the hair spilling over her shoulders. "A trick?" Hinata put a finger to her chin as she considered the question. "You just sort of go like this, and then bam. SHFF. I don't get it." Naruto threw his head back, and she shrugged and grinned. "It's hard to explain it in words. I feel like Hanabi could explain it better if you asked O." Hinata slipped out of Naruto's arms and stood up. "Hang on a second." She went upstairs and came back down with a small box. A wicker box woven of cypress and colored with persimmon dye. "Oh." Naruto sat up straighter. "Your treasure box. I get to look inside it today?" Special for today." The wicker box, normally set aside in a corner of the closet, was the treasure chest Hinata had cherished since childhood. She'd shown him what was inside just once before when they were first married. It had been full of memories she'd made with him, ticket stubs from date night movies they'd gone to, wrapping paper and ribbons from presents, leftover yam from the scarf she knit him at some point. It had been more than 10 years since then. When she opened the lid of the box that still gleamed with the same luster after all these years, he saw that its contents had noticeably increased. A poloniwood box containing the umbilical cords of their 2 children, the acorn necklace Boruto had made her, a portrait Himawari had drawn. A ticket stub for the live-action teen movie Make Out Paradise, the dotted wrapping paper that had wrapped earrings Naruto picked out, they were all in there. "Okay, so listen. I'm sure that this will help." Ever so tenderly, Hinata pulled out an old notebook from the depths of the box. All 4 corners were thoroughly worn away, and the ribbon tying it shut was frayed to the point of snapping. Naruto flipped through its pages, noting the neat rows of characters. "I feel like I've seen this handwriting before." "Well, you see." Hinata smiled mischievously. "It's Neiji's training log." "Neiji's?" "Right. This was Neiji's handwriting." Instantly in that moment, memories came flooding back to him, like a tap had been turned on. The neat, honor student cursive, as if perfectly tracing the examples Master Irika gave them. Neji used to scowl every time he saw Naruto's chicken scratches and say, "Chaotic characters make a chaotic mind." Naruto dropped his eyes to the page once more. Neji hadn't skipped a single day in this record of training on his own. That's who he was. He was a genius, but he also worked tirelessly and was harder on himself than anyone else. He absolutely refused to compromise. "Sonny, be careful not to try and grasp all of the chakra flowing through the Kirakuki-eye network. More effective instead to turn gaze on whole and predict next chakra movement. Goal for now is to see through all of Tenten's secret tools." Rainy. The usual pair was at it again today. The second I take my eyes off them, the teenage drama starts. Wasn't able to dodge the iron fan Tenten threw, cut my cheek. How to cover the Byakugan's blind spot needs study. Sonny. Lost in the first fight of final selection. I don't have that unpredictability he does, the imagination to upend expectations of others. The notebook was completely yellowed and discolored, but still in surprisingly good condition, considering how many years it had weathered. Proof that it had been kept cherished and safe in Hinata's treasure box. Maybe Neji be mad at me, Hinata said, for showing it to you. Yeah, but you read it, right? Naruto replied. She nodded awkwardly and lowered her voice. Just a little while was sad. In secret. Her saying that so quietly means he's definitely listening. He's such a fussy guy. The next morning, Naruto got up early and stopped by the training ground before heading to the Hokage's office. He wanted to learn how to use the goggles as soon as possible to compensate for not using chakra. The dewy grass reflected the pale morning sun, making the whole area glitter. He closed his eyes and pulled the lever on the goggles. Don't try to grasp all the chakra flowing through the Karakake network. Gaze at the hole and predict the next chakra movement. Reflecting on Neji's words, he slowly opened his eyes. All the visual information in the area flooded into his retinas. Gah! With a fierce cry, he tightened his grip on his fraying mind and braced himself. He could see all the things. He could feel a vein in his forehead throbbing. His optic nerves were at full throttle, on the edge of exploding. Calm down. Choose what to see. You don't have to look at everything. First, a bird. I'll find a bird. Naruto looked around. Dirt, stone, grass, dirt. There was a small bluish bird in the leaves of a tree. And not just one. 2, 3, 5 in total. He'd gotten that far when he reached his limit. Gah! I can't. His eyes threatened to roll into the back of his head permanently, and Naruto ripped the goggles off. Surprised by his shout, the blue birds flew up into the air. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 8 of them. Naruto dropped to the ground. He had missed 3 whole birds. He still had a long, long way to go. He looked up at the clouds slowly rolling through the sky and sighed. The vein in his forehead was still throbbing. He had no idea it would be this hard. Neji had never once let on that it was a struggle. That guy really was a genius. Narrow down the target, focus on that. Close off sound and smell, concentrate on seeing only with the eyes. The day before, Naruto had stayed up late reading the notes in the familiar hand that Neji had left behind. The thought that Neji could have taught him himself if he were alive made Naruto's eyes suddenly grow hot, and the tear stain he made on the cherished keepsake was a secret from Hinata. The advice Neji had jotted down was a tremendous source of strength for Naruto. The efficiency of his training would improve from learning how to implement a deceptively simple mechanism of the tool. Waiki! He leaped to his feet and slapped his cheeks. Let's do this. After that, Naruto threw himself into his Byakugan training. He always had better than average reflexes and senses. As he drilled away day after day, he was able to endure the Byakugan for longer and longer, if only bit by bit. And then, one afternoon, taking advantage of a break in his work, Naruto climbed to the top of Hokage Rock. He wanted to test out the Byakugan in a spot with a much richer view than the training ground. He pulled the lever on the goggles and looked out over the old city. With fewer obstructions, the amount of information coming in was of a different magnitude from what he was used to at the training ground. On top of that, chakra-filled shinobi were wandering around all over the place, which was very distracting. NGH. He forced himself to focus his field of vision and spotted an unnatural chakra flow. He turned his mind that way and found chakra leaking like a fog from the base of an old camphor tree on a narrow residential street. HM? What's that? Does chakra usually come out of tree roots? Naruto leaped down from Hokage Rock and went to check it out. The camphor tree stood in a quiet area with few people passing by, even in the middle of the old city. The chakra wasn't being emitted by the tree roots themselves, but rather appeared to be leaking out from openings in the ground. Unless a shinobi had been buried alive in that spot, it was probably coming from a room underground. There was a traditional townhouse in front of the camphor tree. The high windows were cracked, the gable was on an incline, and the structure looked quite abandoned. "Hello?" Naruto opened the unlocked door and found dust piled up on the entryway floor. The old owner had apparently been some kind of merchant. An abacus lay on the step up into the house, and there was a bookcase next to the window. No stairs? He saw a large Japanese-style room, but he couldn't spot anything that looked like stairs in the bungalow. Wait. Naruto touched the hand that was not a prosthetic to the wall in the entryway. Of course. The texture was the same as the liquid crystal wall in Tammy's sweet shop. When he examined the surface closely, he found a small black hole amongst the wood grain and knots. This was probably the keyhole. In which case, there had to be a key somewhere. Prime suspects were the bookmark tucked into an old book and the long metal cooking chopsticks stabbed into the ashes in the brazier. The old-style pipe on the bookcase was also a possibility. He hit the jackpot with his third choice, the pipe. There was a rattling sound inside the hole, and then the wall abruptly turned transparent. He pushed it lightly, and it opened toward the inside like a door. The crystals throughout the panel were forced into arrays with electricity, resulting in the image of a detailed surface. It had been invented at the Research Institute, but because the technology hadn't yet been scaled up to mass production, it shouldn't have been out in the wild like this. Which meant that whoever was here was connected with the Institute. On the other side of the wall was an old wooden staircase. The flames of evenly spaced lamps illuminated the steps in the gloom. This is way too dodgy. On guard, Naruto began down the stairs on quiet feet. He found a sliding door at the bottom of the stairs, and when he opened it, he saw a large Japanese-style room with tatami mats on the floor. A kettle hanging from a pothook was whistling over a small sunken fireplace. There was a tea caddy on a low tray table, and tea leaves for one had been set out inside the overturned lid. Someone had clearly been in the middle of boiling water for tea. What is this place? The smoke from the fireplace was escaping to the outside through a vent, and what appeared to be a fire alarm was affixed to a fat joist on the ceiling. The modern fixture had at some point been installed in the old traditional space. He could sense someone hiding on the other side of the sliding doors further back in the room. Naruto considered how to draw out the person from behind the door without alarming them when the door slid open. Intruder! Ready yourself. A young woman in a coverall apron came flying out. Kashunk. He heard the sound of a scientific ninja tool, and a ball of flames roared to life to fill the small room. Naruto leaped up onto the joist to handily dodge it, and then dropped down behind the woman and plucked away the scientific ninja tool. Be careful, he told her. You'll set the place on fire. Let go. You came to steal my research data, didn't you? With her wrist in Naruto's hand, the woman struggled and kicked like a mouse caught in a trap. You dirty coward. Just let me go. You. Belatedly, the fire alarm began to ring shrilly, and sprinklers in the ceiling began to spray water over the room. Well, I did come in without asking, so there's that. Feeling guilty, Naruto let go of her wrist, and the woman not only did not try to run away, she grabbed a pen from the pocket of her apron. You. She came at him with it, swinging wildly. She had her eyes closed, so she didn't seem to catch on that Naruto was easily sidestepping her would-be blows. You came to steal my data. Isn't that right? What is with this woman? She attacked relentlessly for a full 5 minutes until she finally realized that it was the 7th Hokage she was facing and regained a modicum of calm. I am so terribly sorry. I just misunderstood. My name is Amino Chihare. I'm a scientist from the land of fire. My specialization is astrophysics. The woman bowed at the Hokage as she introduced herself. The room had become thoroughly drenched from the kerfuffle. The water she boiled was completely cold now, after being showered in sprinkler water. Naruto and Chihara sat formally on their knees on the damp tatami mats and waited for the kettle to come to a boil over the fireplace once more. "I scared you by just walking in here," Naruto said. "No, my behavior was inexcusable," she responded. "I never imagined it would be the 7th Hokage who came to take my research data." "No, actually, you've got the wrong idea," he protested, exhausted, and looked up toward the stairs. "But why were you doing research or whatever in a place like this? Going to all the trouble of hiding this room with a liquid crystal wall. Those things are expensive, you know." "I made it myself, so it didn't cost very much at all." Chihara took the boiling kettle off of the pothook and poured hot water into the teapot as she continued. "The liquid crystal wall is my design." "Huh?" Naruto blinked rapidly in surprise. "So then you're a scientist at Kingaquin? What are you doing down here?" "I wanted an environment where I could concentrate on my experiments alone," she said. "This house belongs to Director Fury. He renovated the basement for research purposes, and I've been borrowing it. It must have been some seriously important research if the basement had to be renovated." Naruto looked around the room. "The truth is, I came here because I saw chakra leaking out from where this basement is. I was worried something dangerous might be going on." "What's this research you're doing? Chakra is visible to you?" Chihara asked. When Naruto explained about the function of the goggles, she nodded in understanding. "I see. The chakra you observed most likely leaked out from my lab further back. Which is why I asked what experiment Naruto was cut off. It would actually be quicker for you to take a look." She set the kettle down on the tatami mat, stood up, and pulled open a double door built into the other end of the Japanese-style room. "This is my lab." Naruto's jaw dropped. Shelves lined the 45-square-meter room from floor to ceiling and wall to wall. Petri dishes were crammed into every available space on every single shelf. There were maybe hundreds, even thousands of them. The sight of so many items the same size in the same place was quite impressive and somewhat disturbing. "These petri dishes contain liquefied chakra," Chihara told him. "My mission is to create a pluripotent chakra applicator." "Pluri?" Naruto stared at her blankly. "It's an experiment to change chakra into other substances artificially." She picked up one of the petri dishes and shook it gently as she continued. "Don't you think chakra's quite mysterious? It can become anything. At all. It can be wind, fire, earth, water, electricity. Depending on the person, it can be transformed into lava or rubber even. Recently, some ninja have changed the component elements included in dirt with earth style to make glass and gemstones. There is no other energy that can change into such diverse forms." "I guess, yeah." The phenomenon of transforming chakra was so innate to Naruto that he never thought too hard about it before. But now that she mentioned it, she was exactly right. "It has the potential to transform into anything according to the user," she continued. "If we could control this nature of the chakra scientifically. For instance, what if we could turn chakra into a valuable natural resource or precious metals? Don't you think there would be plenty of societal good in that? Developing a new energy source?" Naruto finally understood the purpose of her experiment. And it was true that if they could make that happen, they would no longer have to destroy nature to extract resources. Such a development would drastically change the energy situation in every country. If they could substitute chakra for all kinds of energy, then the Land of Fire, with the leading shinobi village of the 5 great nations, might jump to first place as a major energy provider. That was if she could actually make it work. "Artificially transforming chakra," he said. "How do you do that?" "How do you do it?" Chihara asked in response, staring into Naruto's eyes. "How on earth do you change chakra into wind? Air?" Naruto looked anywhere but at her. Ever since his episodes had begun, not only had he not changed chakra into wind, he hadn't even needed chakra. But normally he opened the palm of his hand and... Wait. How do I do it? I go thud and then bam, I guess, Naruto replied earnestly, and hearing it, Chihara let out a sigh. All you shinobi say the same incomprehensible thing. Well, I'm sure the perception is difficult to put into words. But at the very least, you must work with the idea, the intention of trying to give the chakra the form of wind. Just like when you move your arms and legs, your brain gives the command to need chakra, the chakra receives that, and changes. She was right. As long as Naruto didn't have the intention of changing chakra into wind, the chakra flowing through his body wouldn't transform. And a command from the brain, it's an electrical signal. Which means that, for instance, when you use the Rasengan, your brain is giving your chakra something close to an electrical signal. Perhaps we can artificially change chakra into the Rasengan. Making that a reality is the focus of my experiments. Chihara showed Naruto the petri dish in her hand. At the bottom of the flat glass dish was a viscous, transparent liquid. This petri dish contains chakra I made into a liquid with special technology. By giving different types of stimuli to this chakra and observing its behavior, I'm examining the state change mechanism. Stimuli? There are a number of them. Electrical current, temperature change, physical shocks. At any rate, my search is quite exhaustive. Chihara opened a notebook set against the end of the shelf, a record of her experiments thus far. It was filled with the conditions and results of experiments in neat, delicate characters. Oxygen treatment followed by heat stimulus, 42.5 degrees Celsius, no reaction. Oxygen treatment followed by heat stimulus, 42.6 degrees Celsius, no reaction. Oxygen treatment followed by heat stimulus, 42.7 degrees Celsius, no reaction. Raising or lowering the temperature and injecting drugs with electricity applied, she changed the amount and time bit by bit, repeating the experiment under a variety of different conditions. Hey? Naruto asked. What's this jellyfish stimulus here? It's extracted from a jellyfish, Chihara replied. Research shows that it emits a stimulus similar to the electrical signal of the brain, so I tried introducing it to the chakra. But I didn't get any hits. Wow! Naruto sighed in genuine admiration. Doing the same work over and over for an extended period required patience and perseverance. And with no guarantee that this effort would bear fruit, it must have been tough to keep pushing forward. No wonder she'd want so desperately to protect her data. There's one other thing I want you to see. I have it set outside though, Chihara said, and the two of them went up the stairs and out of the house, not using the front door with the camphor tree but, instead, the back door that faced the alley. A vehicle with 2 tires was parked there, leaning against the shrubs. What's this? He asked. A cart? It's kind of an odd shape for that. Though. It's a system bike. You use it to go places. This is the seat. Chihara straddled the seat to show him. Her forward-leaning posture was like she was on horseback. You can go places on this? He cried. That's super handy. Unlike the experiment for chakra pluripotency, Naruto immediately grasped this one. The development of a vehicle for individual use had been a topic of discussion since the time of the 6th Hokage. Development had progressed centered around the Institute and Katasuke's research team, but fuel was a constant issue. This bike burns gas to move, Chihara explained. The land of fire mainly imports gas from the land of wind and the land of Kazahashi, right? But if we keep taking natural gas, it will run out at some point. Given its serious dependence on trade, the land of Kazahashi in particular was extracting gas without limit, but in the land of wind, the Kazakage had already begun to put limits on exports. His pretext was to keep prices from dropping too low, but he likely also wanted to prevent the gas from being depleted before an alternative energy source could be developed. Chihara rapped lightly on the small tank attached to the bike. I'd like to revitalize personal transportation, but there's not enough fuel for everyone to go riding around. But my research might resolve that concern. If I can transform chakra and artificially produce kakashi gas for fuel, then we would no longer be dependent on the unstable supply from other countries. Amazing! Naruto cried with childlike glee, his eyes shining. If you can make that happen, then everyone will get to ride one of these and go wherever they want whenever they want. Yes, well, that's the idea. When he stared directly at her, Chihara averted her eyes, looking anxious. If you're thinking that way, I wish you'd help with my experiment. Would you, let me borrow the goggles that let you see chakra? These? Naruto touched the frame of the goggles. Chihara pulled a glass stick out of her pocket. I use this scouter measurement device to see if the chakra in the petri dishes has transformed. I bring the tip of the scouter close to the liquefied chakra and check if the numbers are different from the previous day. But it's quite time intensive. I have to go around and measure each and every one of them. If I could confirm visually using those goggles, I would finish faster. Oh, sure, I can lend them to you. He himself had borrowed them from Orochimaru, but he quickly decided that Orochimaru wouldn't particularly care if he passed them on. But I don't think you'll be able to use them if you just throw them on without any training. I still haven't quite gotten the hang of them, and I'm a shinobi. What? Despair raced across Chihara's face upon hearing that even the Hokage couldn't master them. Then they'll be absolutely impossible for me to use. Oh, I know. You could just come here every day and check the flow of chakra for me. That's more than just a request, you know, he protested weakly. I have stuff to do too. Are you busy? She asked. But if you use the teleportation jutsu, you could be here instantly. Oh, I can't use chakra right now. Even though he'd been keeping it a secret from everyone in the village, for some reason, the words came naturally from his mouth. Maybe the ease of talking to someone he didn't know made him say it. What? Chihara was at a loss for words and looked at Naruto pityingly. What is the point for you when you can't use chakra? She was powerfully direct, stabbing straight into his heart. The biggest reason that Uzumaki Naruto became the 7th Hokage was because of how highly valued his achievements in the Great Ninja War were, right? Meaning, basically, that the people were seeking battle power from you, and now you can't use chakra, which seems bad. Will you continue as Hokage? I'm not giving up the Hokage seat to anyone. The old Naruto would almost certainly have yelled something like that. But right now, as Hokage, he bore different burdens than he did in the past. Could he continue as Hokage when he could no longer fight? This was the thought that had been stuck in his head all this time. My situation's one thing. Naruto awkwardly changed the subject. But if I can help with your experiments, I'll do it. Not so much Hokage work at this time of year anyway. Thank you so much, she cried. It's settled then. They marched down the stairs and returned to the lab to get started right away and check the petri dishes. There were an incredible 800 of them on the shelves against one wall. Naruto climbed the stepladder and pulled the lever on the goggles. He moved his eyes over the chakra in the dishes one by one, but all of it was sitting quietly in the bottoms of the glass dishes. He couldn't see any real changes. None of them are really moving and shaking here. Well, we won't see results that quickly, Chihara said. I've been doing this for over 6 months now, but I still haven't found any chakra that's changed. 6 months apparently. Byakugan training and scientific experiments were the same in that they both required repeated trial and error. But Naruto was nothing if not entirely up for a fight of perseverance and determination. This actually only made him more determined as he looked at all the petri dishes lined up on the shelves. Chihara's experiment had the potential to significantly change the world. If they could change the nature of chakra at will, allowing non-ninja to use it too, he was sure their world would become more convenient and a lot more fun. For instance. So, what if you completed this pluripotent machine? Naruto said, the stepladder between his legs as he stepped with it to one side, holding onto the shelf as he did. Copying Kazahashi gas is fine and all, but we could use it for other things too, right? Like, you're saying you'd like to use it in the field of medical treatment. I understand that. Chihara cut him off and continued. If chakra could be Kazahashi gas, then it might also become skin or nails or organs like the heart. If we can understand how to transform chakra into human cells, we'll be able to repair tissue lost in accidents or through illness. We should be able to dramatically extend healthy life expectancy. Right. I don't get all that difficult stuff, he replied. But when I heard you talking about chakra, my first thought was maybe we could fix Sasuke's arm or Master Guy's leg. Sasuke? Do you mean Chihara started to ask if he was referring to Uchiha Sasuke? K. Suddenly, the ceiling split open and wooden boards dropped down. Shelves broke and petri dishes slid to the floor and shattered. What the? Naruto grabbed Chihara's arm and pulled her in front of him to protect her from the chunks of ceiling raining down on them. A spherical multicopter with 4 propellers flew in through the opening in the ceiling, motor humming quietly a drone. The machine used lift generated by the 4 propellers to fly. Naruto had read reports about drone research at the Institute and by Katasuke, but this was the first time he had actually seen one. So they did it then? Naruto forgot for a moment the situation they were in and stared at it. Perceiving Naruto's gaze as a threat, the drone approached with a whine. Should I shoot it down before it attacks? But I don't know if it's hostile or not. What if it just made a mistake and flew in here during a test? Someone would be mad at me if I smashed it. While he wrestled with what to do, the numeral 5 popped up on the central sphere of the drone. 4, 3, 2. The numbers dropped before his eyes. A bomb. Run. Naruto flew out of the lab with Chihara in his arms. He raced up the flight of stairs, and about halfway up. Boom. Yikes. Blowback from the explosion pushed up from the bottom of the stairs. Still clutching Chihara, he forced his way up the crumbling stairs and made it out onto the ground floor. He kicked down the door, and as they ran out onto the street, he heard the hum of a drone approaching. What was that? An explosion? Was that a drone? A real one? Chihara yelped, panicking, and Naruto pushed her behind him without a word. New drones appeared one after the other. 7 of them, arranged in a fan formation with the central drone in the lead. Naruto could tell. Someone was clearly controlling them, but where? And more importantly, who? The incident with Asianaro crossed his mind, but he had no proof that the same person was pulling the strings here. What he did know was that if these drones all exploded together, it wouldn't just be the empty house that went up in flames. He needed to get them away from the crowded city, but in his current chakra-less state, where could he go? 28 propellers played their whirring song, interrupting Naruto's thoughts. He divided his attention among the machines lined up neatly before them, and then he heard a new sound cut through the air, an engine roaring to life. Please get on. You drive, Chihara shouted, straddling the seat of a bike and pulling on the engine lever. Taking advantage of the moment Naruto was distracted, the 7 drones began to move as one. Naruto dodged the machines, dive-bombing his face, grabbing a plastic bucket from where it lay on the road and throwing it over the closest drone. And for good measure, he kicked the lid of the bucket up at the remaining drones. This counterattack slowed the machines briefly, but they were soon back in formation. Toom. Toom. The imprisoned drone pulverized its plastic bucket cage in no time with its propellers and flew out to freedom. Gah! Come on! Naruto threw the remaining buckets at them with an air of desperation, and then turned his back boldly to run full speed toward the bike. He leaped onto it, grabbed the handlebars, and straddled the seat. Grab the lever, and press down on the right foot pedal, Chihara said. Which one's the lever? He yelled. This one. She reached out from behind and slapped the lever below the right hand grip. DRRM. The engine roared, the bike leaped up, and in the recoil, Naruto's foot slammed down onto the pedal. He felt a sudden force pushing on the rear of the machine. Wah! He yelped, and the bike shot forward like a rocket. The scenery streamed past, and the wind pushed against his face, making it hard to keep his eyes open. When he took a hand off the grips to lower his goggles, the bike swerved dramatically, and the right-hand mirror hit the concrete block wall on one side of the road and catapulted up into the air. Whoa! Could you please keep your balance here? Chihara complained, but she herself knew only too well that it was an absurd request. He was already driving impossibly well given that this was his first time even being on the unwieldy machine. His reflexes were good, and now that he experienced losing his balance once, Naruto took one hand off the grip again, but this time, the bike kept moving in a straight line. He lowered his goggles, pulled the lever, and put his hand back on the grip. He checked out the view behind them with his Byakugan. There were no drones around. Hey, Chihara, he shouted. How do you stop this thing? You can't stop it, she replied curtly. What? I told you it's a prototype, didn't I? Incidentally, you also can't adjust the speed. The ends of the grips brushed up against the hedges in front of houses. The road was fairly narrow, and it just barely accommodated the bike. The machine would stop once it ran out of fuel. But Naruto didn't want to think about what would happen first, the gas tank emptying out, or the bike crashing through one of the houses on either side of the road. Well, the road was narrow, but he could probably make it as long as he kept driving straight like this. Wait. Where were they, anyway? He glanced around and caught sight of blackish blobs flying at the edge of his field of vision through the goggles. They came after us. The 7 drones were closing in on them impossibly fast. A muzzle shaped like a straw stretched out from the spherical body of the drone in the lead. HM? Naruto turned his attention to it and saw the tip flash red. The photon gun confiscated from Azanaru emits an excimer laser, and the structure is such that the muzzle of the gun flashes red before it fires. This line from the report on the assassination attempt in the land of Kazuhashi popped up in his mind. Yikes. A bright red beam of light shot out with a low hum, the sound of photons knocking molecules aside. Naruto didn't know anything about how to operate this bike, but he reflexively tilted the vehicle body. Their path forward shifted to one side, and the laser beam passed just above his ear and shot into the hedge of a nearby house. Bump! The reed screen in front of the hedges swelled up and exploded at the sudden and dramatic increase in temperature. Impossible. They would die if they took a hit from that. Chihara grabbed tightly onto Naruto's shoulders. Please get us out of here. This road is too narrow. Go out onto the main street. Can't. Too many people on that road. We have to get out of the village. Before he could finish his sentence, a laser beam shot out from the left this time. It hit the block wall squarely, and a cat startled by the explosion shot out across the road. Cat, Chihara cried. I know! Naruto shouted. The block wall crumbled, the rubble piling up and spilling out into the middle of the street. When the front wheel of the bike hit the block wall, Naruto threw his arms out and shifted his center of gravity backward. The front tire floated up. The bike rose up into the air, like it had hit a spring, and easily flew over the cat's head before hitting the ground again with a thud. The bike stopped for a moment, pitching forward, before restarting its relentless charge forward. Chihara bit her tongue. She screamed so hard, and now she shouted into Naruto's ear with tears in her eyes. Lord Seventh. If we're trying to leave the village, the AN gate is the other way. Can't. Naruto shook his head. To go out the gate, we have to go down the main road. Too much of a risk of damage to the village. Well then, how are we going to get out? A way to get outside without going through the gate train or airship. I got it, he said in a low voice and clenched the grips. The train station was on the other side of the main street, a long stucco building with 3 large doors. The doors had been a gift from the Kazekage to celebrate the opening of the railway, and tourists flocked to them to admire the beauty of their construction, with mother-of-pearl inlay craftsmanship and detailed gold lacquer decoration. Out of the way, hey! The 7th Hokage sent the bike charging into one of those beautiful, big doors. The door, cruelly sent flying hinges and all, collided with 2 of the 7 drones and unexpectedly cut the number of their pursuers. The 5 remaining drones got back into formation and zoomed forward. VVVN. The bike engine roaring, they raced along the wooden floor inside the station building. The stunned passengers who happened to be in the building fled in a panic and, no doubt, never even imagined that the maniacal rider of this rampaging machine was the 7th Hokage. Tires squealing, the bike screeched down the stairs while Naruto broke off the remaining left mirror and threw it at the emergency alarm when they came out onto the platform. Eeeeee. The mirror hit the button smack in the middle, and a shrill alarm filled the air. The bike slipped through the pandemonium of the platform, shrieks and curses coming from all corners, and out onto the line itself to race alongside the train that had come to an emergency stop. GRA. Don't bite your tongue, Naruto cautioned, unaware that she had already bitten it once. Unlike the paved streets of the old city, the railway line was a bumpy road of railroad ties at regular intervals. Each time they went over a tie, the bike slid from side to side, but Naruto quickly righted them by shifting his center of gravity. We're getting out of the village. I'll figure out what to do about them once there's no one around. As he rode, Naruto kept an eye on the pursuers behind them. 5 drones left. Only 2 had come at them with the laser beams. The drones had any number of chances, but none of them had tried to suicide bomb Naruto and Chihara. So then was it just that one drone at the start equipped with a bomb? Thump. His heart pounded heavily, and a sudden pain radiated through his chest. One hand nearly slipped off the grip, and he hurried to tighten his fingers around it again. But the hand trembled and shook. NGH. Not now. The crushing pain in his chest pulsed and throbbed more intensely with each passing second. He started to wheeze and gasp for breath. It was like his trachea was refusing to let oxygen pass. Chihara noticed something was wrong with him. What's the matter? Not ing. Naruto bluffed hard and yanked his face up. The wind pushing up against them sent the cold sweat beating on his forehead, scattering behind them. He put an elbow on the tank and rubbed his eyes, his vision hazy and pale as he desperately panted for air. Hey, are you having trouble? Is this bad? Chihara panicked. I can't take over the driving, you know? Behind her, the drones were getting closer. Come on already. Naruto leaned to the side to dodge a laser beam and slammed his aching chest against the tank. He could taste blood from where he'd bitten his lip. The railroad track led onto a steel bridge. Below the bridge was a valley with a brook running through it. Abruptly, 2 of the drones on their tail cut out to the side. Huh? They give up? Naruto watched the drones with the Byakugan as they dove under the bridge and shot laser beams at the arch piers supporting it. Fly. The steel was burning bright red in an instant, and sparks began too. For real? He gaped at the sight. Boom! An explosion knocked the pier away from the base. They went and smashed the pillar, he yelled indignantly. The tracks rose up like inchworms, the guardrails shattered, and the railroad ties bounced up into the air. Having lost its road, the front wheel of the bike bounced up almost perfectly perpendicular. Do you know how much it cost to build this bridge? He shouted. Is now really the time to worry about that? Chihara yelled back. Without its pier, the bridge started to crumble from below. Naruto selected a rail that was still more or less retaining its shape and desperately kept riding, but he soon reached its limit. Rail twisted apart and thrust up to knock the rear wheel of the bike away, and the force of it pushed Naruto and Chihara into empty air. Damn it. Of all the times not to be able to use chakra. Naruto twisted his torso, wrapped an arm around Chihara's waist, and assumed a passive falling posture with himself on the bottom. They were surrounded by twisted railway, thick pylons, and all manner of debris that could kill them instantly if they got trapped under it, but thanks to the Byakugan, he was pretty sure he could swim them through it and make it safely to the ground. And then a drone appeared before him, gun muzzle out. Naruto didn't even have time to groan before the extended barrel locked onto his eyes. The tip blinked with red light. To protect Chihara, he switched positions with her just as the branch of a tree shot out and stabbed the drone from directly below. The red light vanished, and the 4 propellers slowed to a stop. The extended branch kept moving to wrap around Naruto and Chihara and catch them in midair. This was with style ninjutsu. No way. There was currently only one person in the village of Konohagakure who had this kind of command over wood style. Naruto looked up with a gasp and saw that an enormous tree had grown up from the valley to support the crumbling steel bridge. Swirling vines curled tightly around it and stabilized the structure. Moving like a creature with its own will, the tree branch lowered Naruto and Chihara to the ground. As it slackened and twisted away from them, Chihara slumped down to the ground with a wretched, "Ah. I see you're just barely alive as always, Naruto," came a flat voice, together with the crunch of gravel. Naruto patted his chest, the painful attack now past, and exhaled briefly before looking back. The star of the Embu was standing tall, hands still woven in a sign, face guard hiding the outline of his face, and with style ninjutsu inherited from the genes of the first Hokage. Commander Yamato. Yamato, the man who had once led Naruto in place of Kakashi, saw that Naruto was unharmed and smiled in relief. End of Chapter 2. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.